Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Travel in Time with the Dan Show, where we mix travel with history, with leadership, and of course with me, Dan Blanchard. Today I'm at the Arlington House in Virginia, overlooking the Arlington Cemetery. If you're not quite sure, I'm pretty sure you know what the Arlington Cemetery is. You've probably heard of the Arlington House. This is General E. Lee's house that was basically taken away from him and his wife during the Civil War. Now this house has like an amazing story that goes along with it, as well as the cemetery, which I'll cover that in a bit. So here's the story. Martha Washington is tied to this house, right? She's got a grandson named George Washington Parke Custis, right? He's the grandson. George Washington's going to adopt him, I think when he's something like maybe 6 years old. He's going to be the only father that this young George Washington Parke Custis has ever known, pretty much. So George Washington's like his dad, like his hero, all this. And many years later, he's going to build this house, right? And he's going to put all this memorial stuff of George Washington, honoring his dad, stepdad, right? Grandfather, step-grandfather, but dad, really, honoring him right here. And he's going to make this house pretty much the nation's first unofficial museum dedicated to our first president, George Washington. Now, he's going to have a daughter named Anna Randolph Custis. And she's going to eventually, obviously she lives in this house, but she's going to eventually marry General Robert E. Lee, right? The really prominent general, right? And I think they're like third cousins or something like that. But she's going to marry him. And they're going to live in this house probably for 30 years. They're going to live in this house. And everything's going to be good, pretty much. This is a plantation. They do have slaves, right? Her parents are living at the house also. And when her parent passes away, they're actually going to bury her parents down in the cemetery. I guess a little bit of foreshadowing, maybe, of what's coming, right? So the Arlington House has quite a history, right? It's first a memorial to George Washington. Then it's a plantation with slaves. And then it becomes a site for the national mourning and reconciliation, right? Becomes that site, all right? Now, so what's going to change everything? The Civil War. Lincoln, the Civil War. Virginia's going to succeed, right? And this is Lee's people. This is Lee's home, his family, his friends. He's going to resign his commission from the United States Union Army, where he's big, he's good, he's really good at what he does. Lincoln tries to hire him, and he says, no, I have to go protect my family in Virginia, my friends and family in Virginia. And he leads Virginia, right? He joins the Virginia militia. And eventually, he's obviously so good at what he does, the Confederates come looking for him and we need you to lead us. Jefferson Davis is we need you. And he does. He goes over to the Confederates, right? And this is really tricky, very tricky situation, okay? This house overlooks D.C., as you can see down here, right? Whoever has cannons up on this hill can look right down on D.C. and rain terror down on D.C. So, Robert E. Lee's wife, Mary, she knows that they're coming. So she evacuates. She just takes off real quick because they're coming. She knows it. This is a great strategic high point, right? So Mary flees. Her slave girl, Selina Gray, is fleeing too. She grabs a whole bunch of artifacts from here. She grabs paintings, George Washington paintings, all sorts of paintings. She grabs George Washington's tent. There might have been two of them. She grabs George Washington's tent from the Revolutionary War, and she flees. They save these things, right? Now, here's where things get crazy. You could say, oh, General Lee, he went over to the Confederates, he's the bad guy, blah, blah, blah. You could say that, right? But here's the thing, right? General Lee, as he's overseeing, the estate, right? He's in Civil War now, fighting first for Virginia, his family and friends, and then the Confederates, right? And in 1862, right, his father-in-law's will says to free the slaves. Now, think about this. He's the Civil War general for the Confederates, and they don't want slaves freed. And And he's the leader. And what does he do? He obeys his father-in-law's will and he frees the slaves. I mean, it said 5 years. He took the full 5 years to free them, but he does. He frees the slaves. All right? So now, is General Lee a bad guy? That's tough, man. But I'll tell you right now, who's mad at him? Quartermaster General Meigs is furious with him. You know, I guess they must have been close or something. He felt such a betrayal. And he's furious with him. He's so mad that he comes up with the idea of, he's like, we're going to take Lee's property and we're going to start burying the soldiers there. Right? We're going to start burying the soldiers there, make him pay, make sure he can never come back to this property, right? And Mary's fighting for this not to happen. So she's trying to sue and all that stuff. She's fighting like the good fight. But General Meigs hangs around for a long time. And he just fights right back. And he just makes sure that this is, you know, all these people are buried here, you know, with her parents, I guess, right? Make sure these people are buried here. And it becomes a cemetery. Now, the war does end, right? War definitely, it ends. And after the war, the biggest thing is reconciliation, right? We could say reconstruction, see all this stuff, but reconciliation's huge. So during the reconciliation after the war, instead of General Lee being hung or shot by a firing squad, he's really good at what he does. So they make him the superintendent of West Point. Yeah, I know, go figure, right? They make him the superintendent of West Point. And in West Point, he does a really, really good job. At West Point, I think back in the day when he graduated from West Point, he was like one of the top, maybe the top of his class. But he does a really good job at West Point as the superintendent of West Point. And if you go inside this building, you're going to see a bunch of his West Point furniture is now inside this house. Yeah, pretty cool, right? All right, pretty cool. So here's the thing, though. The United States versus Lee, General Lee's son is going to continue suing, saying that their property was taken, you know, was wrong, this and that. And his son's going to continue to sue. And there's going to be a Supreme Court case, the United States v. Lee, right? And here, the United States government's going to lose the Supreme Court case. They're going to say there was no due process to the Union military taking Lee's home and turning it into a cemetery. He's going to lose. But I mean, what are you going to do now? I mean, what are you going to dig up all these tombstones, all these bodies down? Yeah, you can't do it, right? So the United States government is just going to give $150,000 in place of doing that, and that's what's going to happen. Now, earlier, I showed you a picture of looking down at Washington, D.C. There's a thing down there. There's a bridge down there called the Arlington Memorial Bridge. I drove over it to get here, and basically, it's pretty like it's symbolic. Symbolically, it basically joins Lincoln's. If you can see it down there, right? It's right down there. It joins symbolically. It joins Lincoln with Lee, going over the Arlington Memorial Bridge. Right? That's all about reconciliation, bringing the country back together, right? And I want you to think about this. I mean, history's tough. History's complicated, right? You got competing values. I mean, certainly General Lee had competing values. You got conflicting loyalties, you know, his Virginia family and friends, right? And you got involving interpretations of, you know, what really happened in history, which makes history really, really complicated. Who's controlling the narrative? Who's telling the story, right? It's very complicated. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what would you have done if you were in Lee's shoes? Would you have abandoned your friends and family in Virginia? This is a plantation. Slaves are here. What would you have done? It's hard, right? It's definitely hard. Well, today, the Arlington House is a living memorial, right? And in this cemetery below, there's so many famous people down there. JFK, right? John Kennedy's down there. Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers down there. Audie Murphy, one of the heroes of World War I's down there. President Taft's down there. And much, 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 much more. There's so many more down there, right? So you know when I do my Traveling Time with Dan show, I like to combine travel with history, with leadership, and of course me, right? Giving you, you know, some history. You should definitely check this place out. The cemetery's cool. Changing the guard is amazing. This house is amazing. Washington, D.C. is amazing. So it's definitely something worth checking out. Giving you a little bit of the history. So what's the leadership now? The leadership is decisions involve competing loyalties and lasting consequences. Right? That's what leaders have to deal with. Right? History often judges leaders not only by what they accomplish, but by the choices they make and when their loyalties conflict. That's tough. It's not easy being a leader. That's why we don't have a lot of great leaders. It's hard to be a leader. All right, everybody, thank you for hanging out with me today on the Travel on Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history, leadership, and of course me, Dan Blanchard. Be back real soon with another episode somewhere else. Until then, keep trying to lead through your conflicts and your loyalties, and I'll see you real soon somewhere else.